Joining me today is highly acclaimed speaker Tricia Brouk.
First time you hit record, if it's not live, you're going to probably have 30 to 40 takes.
She's an award-winning director, producer, author, and founder of the Big Talk Academy.
When you give yourself the skill set of doing it over and over again, practicing it where you're not going to put the recording that you're working on out in the public.
She's going to share what the pros do to speak confidently, naturally, and persuasively. Are there certain practices or exercises that you could do before you hit record to kind of get into that energetic state?
Instead of thinking about recording on camera and recording your content as a burden and an obligation, get yourself out of that mindset and think about it as a creative expression. The biggest mistake you can make when you are recording on camera is
if you've ever felt awkward, stiff, or rambly or inauthentic on camera, sometimes to the point of actually dreading filming content, then today's episode is for you. Joining me today is highly acclaimed speaker Tricia Brouk, who literally teaches thousands of speakers on how to own the stage and connect with audiences worldwide. And even if you're just speaking to your webcam on your laptop or your camera phone when filming content, then she's going to share what the pros do to speak confidently, naturally, and persuasively. I'm so excited for today's episode. She's an award-winning director, producer, author, and founder of the Big Talk Academy. She's mentored some of the most influential speakers out there, produced TEDx, Lincoln Square, and her work has helped thousands deliver messages that truly resonate. So Tricia, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Auret. I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to your community.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. I want to just dive right into this conversation. You've worked with, many speakers on huge stages and many who are even like high performing professionals who want to be respected and known for their craft. And if someone's like, look, I know my stuff, I'm good at what I do, but when I hit record, just something happens. I feel like awkward. I feel off. What would you do or say to them to help them feel more relaxed, confident in their element?
Well, first, you're not alone. Everyone has a learning curve when it comes to recording themselves on camera. And if it's not live, the first time you hit record, you're going to probably have, and I'm not kidding, 30 to 40 takes because you will fumble a word, you will not like how you deliver it. I'm a former dancer, so it's just like doing pliés. You have to do the pliés and the repetitions to become more comfortable with it. And that's the first thing, is that you're not alone. The second thing is when you give yourself the skill set of doing it over and over again and practicing it where you're not going to put the recording that you're working on out in the public, so that there's no stakes, there's no risk at this point. You're just recording content so that you can get comfortable seeing that red light come on and knowing that you need to turn on. That's something that's a skill set as well. When you have the countdown 3, 2, 1 and the red light goes on, you need to be on, and you need to be on as the countdown happens. So you don't wait 3, 2, 1 and then come on, because the camera's going to capture that. When I work with actors, it's the same thing. If you're doing a scene, you want to be in the scene before you hear action. You don't want to be waiting and you're neutral and then you hear action and then you start acting. You begin acting before you hear the word action. And that's a very tiny tip you can use as well. 3, 2, 1, you're already ready. Red light goes. Hi, I'm Tricia Brouk, and I'm so excited that you're here with me today. And I cannot wait to share everything I know about being on camera effortlessly and for impact. Cut.
I love that. And there's a few things I want to touch upon in that, but going back to being ready right away, are there certain practices or exercises that you could do before you hit record to kind of get into that energetic state?
I love how you said energetic state, Auret, because it is an energetic state. The biggest mistake you can make when you are recording on camera is thinking that it is flat, because the medium is literally a camera and a monitor that is flat. However, you must get into a three-dimensional energetic state prior to recording the content. And you do that so beautifully. You're doing it right now. I am looking at you through the lens of my camera, through my computer monitor, but there is a three-dimensional state energetically about you. What I would suggest is, instead of thinking about recording on camera and recording your content as a burden and an obligation, get yourself out of that mindset and think about it as a creative expression. I think that's a big mistake many of us as content creators make. It becomes an obligation or a burden because we have to generate so much content all the time. And during March, April, May, and June of 2020, I gave myself a challenge of recording 80 new YouTube videos, 80.
Wow.
And I wanted to put up one every single week. Maybe it was multiple times a week. I can't remember. And the goal was to get the algorithm to start following me. It didn't work. However, the challenge wasn't recording. The challenge was 80 outfits.
Oh my gosh, you legitimately changed 80 outfits.
I did.
Wow.
And sometimes you have to throw a scarf on. You got the same jacket, you throw a scarf on, a new hat.
Creative. Yeah.
But that's how I approached it is I am creating this content in service of my community and they need it more now than ever. And I'm going to show up ready. And it was hard. And I knew that these 80 videos were going to serve my audience in a way that they needed so much that that's how I energetically got ready. I reminded myself that being of service is the ultimate gift.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we get into our own head and think of like perfection. We got to get this right. And it's like all about us getting it right. But one of the things that I've shared with our clients is just think of when you're looking at the camera lens, seeing a friend that you know or someone that makes you feel comfortable and just imagining that they're on the other side of that and speaking to them, because then it places like you're speaking to them and you're thinking about them. And so I think that aligns with what you just mentioned in that it's about being of service. It's about sharing your message. Like that's really the why behind this.
It's such a good point. And I've even shared with my clients, my speakers, when they do TV, is to put behind the lens a photograph of someone so that they can look at their eye line. Because when you record TV, it depends which network you're recording, but usually you have the monitor in your ear and it's going straight to the room where they're recording you, the newsroom, if you will. And then the journalist is on camera. Sometimes you can't even see them. And your job is to not look at the journalist who might be down here on your screen, because if you're looking down, then you're not connecting to the audience. So when my speakers struggle with, I'm looking at you, you're on screen with me. Well, you're actually not looking at the audience. So I have them put a picture of their loved one right above the lens, not too far because you don't want to be looking up, but right at eye line. And then they can have the conversation with that person, even though they're hearing the interview from the person who's on the screen below them.
Yeah, I think that's important to have the eye line piece as well, rather than looking up or down. And I know it's so tempting sometimes, especially when you're filming with your phone, to look at yourself in the screen. So yeah, I can relate to that. Do you feel like speaking on camera differs from being on stage in terms of like the skills that translate over?
It takes so much more energy to speak on camera when you're alone in your space. And that might sound counterintuitive, but you have nothing really to play off of except your own manifestation of who's behind the lens. So when you think about that, you are looking into that lens and it's being broadcast to millions of people, it requires so much more energy than it does standing on a stage and speaking to 2,000 people, because those 2,000 people are giving you their energy and you can feed off of that. But it's important that you manufacture the level of energy that you need to by thinking about the millions of people you're speaking to. So I think it's much more challenging. And I'm not trying to dissuade you from doing content creation on camera. We need you. We need your voice. We need your image. But just know that it requires you approaching this like a high performance athlete.
Right. And that's why it's so important for you to get into that practice or routine or whatever you need to do before you hit record to get into that energetic state, because it's just you in the room. There's no one else. And for me, like this is something that I struggled with, like back in the early days of doing videos for our channel. It was not easy. My best mode of communication is writing, actually, rather than video. It was something that I had to practice over and over again. And just little things like breathing exercises with your speakers, but just taking a few breaths and, you know, just having the audience member in mind or the viewer, whoever's watching this, has really helped.
Yeah. And setting the intention of what you're going to transmit, because you are energetically transmitting transmitting through the lens. And when you understand that intention along with the breathing, then you have a much more successful camera ready experience.
Right. I know sometimes in favor of wanting to be energetic and speak on camera and this kind of thing, sometimes it can feel inauthentic and it can feel almost like too much. And because we see all these videos in our feed of like really charismatic people and talking like this, but then sometimes that's not us, right? It's definitely not me being like all loud and big. So how do you bring energy to the camera without it coming across as inauthentic?
I agree. I'm not the loud and big, loud communicator either. I am very comfortable with my ability to be authentic and impactful and commanding by saying less and by energetically embodying more. And what I would say is understand who you are and how you are comfortable, and then double down on that. And trust that when you come with your intention, calm with your breath, you're hydrated, you know your content, or your teleprompter is set up in a way that's going to enable you to record 80 videos in a 6-hour period, that you're focused and that your attention is on the content, just like the attention of the athlete is on the game.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, the attention's not on you. And you said less is more in a way. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what you think is best in terms of if someone tends to ramble and, go off on these tangents, and maybe that comes also to the preparation beforehand as well. But how would you help someone who tends to ramble on camera?
If you're a rambler, I would suggest starting to record yourself and watch it back. I'm using this athletic analogy so much, this sports analogy, but it's just like coach watching a football game with a quarterback. You want to see all the moves that you're making so you can improve. If you know you're a rambler, tape bullets up onto the top of your screen so that you can grab those bullets and you can stay on track. If you are somebody who likes to write like you are, write your script out and then use a teleprompter so that you feel really comfortable with how you're communicating. I do both. I improv and I also use a teleprompter. If I'm going to be recording 25 videos and they're all new content, I don't have time to memorize and I want to get all of the points in as articulately and succinctly as possible. So I'm going to use a teleprompter. And I also know that sometimes I just want to go on camera and speak from the heart. And what I would say there is pause, give yourself permission to speak, allow that to sink in for us as the audience, and then continue. The reason you're rambling is because you're nervous. And most people are very uncomfortable with silence. So if you give yourself permission to speak and pause, allowing that to wash over us, and then to continue, and then to understand when you've completed and you've finished, end. Many people will end what they're saying 3 or 4 times, and then we stop listening. So it's a matter of really honing the skills so that you know how to pause and how to wrap it up.
And the beauty of, it being on camera is the editing as well. If it's not something that you have to record in one take, those pauses can be cut out. If it's not an intentional pause for like impact or anything like that, right? If it's like, oh, I just need to pause to gather my thoughts and then come back and speak again. And I do the same thing, just like you as well. Sometimes I prefer to just have bullet points and riff off of those. And then with the script, it's for certain, like, especially for filming an ad video where I have to like be really tight and succinct, right? And get all those points. Because I get that question a lot as well, is what's best? Should I do full script? Should I just improv and see where it goes, bullet points? It sounds like you also saying do what works for you and what feels good. I think some of our clients who have tried using scripts because they were told to use scripts in the past, it can sometimes come across as stiff. And we're always, again, about prioritizing the energy on camera. What's going to bring you out in the best way possible?
So true. I'm very similar to you when I'm recording ads because it's such a strategy. There's the hook and then who you are and why this is important. There's so many specific things that you need to hit. And I always use scripts when I'm recording ads.
When it comes to prepping for a presentation, a video, whatever the topic is that you're going to speak on, do you have a certain framework or method that you walk people through?
I'm a former dancer and I've been in film, television, and theater my entire life. So I am a rehearser. I prepare and I rehearse. And that doesn't necessarily mean I come fully memorized with everything, but I understand what the mechanics are of how I'm going to do this. And so I'm holding a pen and I'm holding a note card. Part of what I do when I'm teaching is I want to be able to refer to my note as I'm teaching. So if I'm teaching a masterclass that's on camera, I'm going going to introduce the idea of my pen and my note card early on, and it's in frame. So being in frame means everybody understands that this is normal. I'm going to be taking notes. I'm going to be referring to my note card. I'm going to be focusing on you so that they know this is part of the world we live in.
Yeah. And I've seen you do that before in one of your presentations. So that's cool that you're mentioning that was intentional, that you mentioned it in the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you for noticing that. So what this does is it takes away any concern from the audience. Why is she looking at notes? Doesn't she know what she's talking about? I absolutely know what I'm talking about. And I also know that I want to talk about lighting and audio, camera angle, settings. And while we're talking, I'm going to be taking notes so that I don't forget that I'm going to talk about where to look and how to manage your energy when you are recording, because managing your energy is equally as important if you're going to be recording 80 videos. So this is something that I do. I set myself up to have this physical rehearsal. I know what I'm going to do. Got my note card. I've got my pen. I've got my notepad next to me. And my performance space is completely carved out so that when the camera is on, and sometimes I teach 6-hour master classes 2 days in a row, 4 times a year. When that camera's on and I'm live, there's nowhere for me to go. I am in my performance space. Everybody knows I'm going to have a note card. I'm going to refer to it. I'm going to take notes as we're going. I've created an environment where my expectations are clear.
Yeah. And also an environment that you also feel comfortable in too, like the space. I feel like a lot of people think they have to get into a fancy studio and everything to record their videos, and that can absolutely work and feels good for some people, but you want to remove the friction as much as possible. So if it feels easy and good to just whip out your phone camera and like set it up there and be on your couch or whatever it may be and speak to that, and that feels good, then we encourage you to go. Again, that it comes back to the energy. I think this is like a recurring theme in our conversation.
It's so true. And I love that you're giving everyone who's watching permission to do what feels good to you. I am not going to sit on my couch or be in the bathroom. It's just not, it's not what feels good for me. But that does not mean that that's wrong or right. And if you love just putting your camera on the kitchen or the bathroom sink and just talking directly to us because you're having a vulnerable moment, oh my gosh, do it. We want to see that from you. We really do. So I love that you're talking about do what feels good and right for you.
Yeah. I mean, all of these, there's like Jen Gottlieb, for example, does these videos on get ready with me. And she literally has it in the bathroom, you know, getting ready. And it's not to say that you have to do the same thing, but it just ties back to you can be vulnerable. Like it doesn't have to be so polished and perfect. So I love that. I want to talk about storytelling, authentic storytelling, because I know that's a big part of your magic is. And storytelling is really, really great, especially on video camera, especially on YouTube. We all love that watch time on video content. So I'd love to hear from you. What is your go-to method or way of engaging a viewer into a story and keeping them engaged throughout?
I think the first thing is knowing how to tell your story and knowing how to be credible, relatable, and vulnerable. The credibility part comes from your lived experience and sharing through your point of view. Being credible doesn't mean you have to have a PhD or a book. It simply means that you're the credible expert. And for me, I have been working in film, television, and theater for over 30 years. I've been on thousands of stages, and that makes me the credible expert. Yes, I have 3 books. However, because of my experience as a dancer, as a director, as a producer, as a speaking strategist, I can speak to this with great authority because of my lived experience. Relatability part when it comes to storytelling is sharing part of who you are so that the audience can feel connected to you, can see themselves in you. They want to keep watching because they have that connection to you. For me, being relatable means telling the story of growing up in Missouri on a farm, moving to New York City when I was 20 years old, manifesting dancing with Baryshnikov. So those are things that might relate you to me in terms of storytelling. And then the third piece is vulnerability. We've all heard Brene Brown talk about vulnerability. And when it comes to storytelling and speaking, whether it's on camera or on a stage, speaking vulnerably means sharing your personal story in service of the audience. It does not mean sharing your personal or traumatic story in service of your healing. That is too soon. If you have not healed from the trauma you are sharing with the audience, you are burdening us with helping you heal. And if you become emotional while you're sharing the story, you rob us of having the emotional experience. When you're sharing vulnerably as a storyteller, share from the scar, not the wound. And you can have emotion, but do not become emotional, because it's your job to take care of us. Allow us to have the emotional response because you are sharing vulnerably, but you are not sharing your trauma from the wound.
I love that you said it's just sharing in service of you, of the viewer, of the audience. It's also, you know, if you're thinking about it more logically on the YouTube side of things, if you're doing a video, you want that story to also serve whatever point that you're trying to make, like tying it into, you know, whatever the message of the video is. And so it makes sense to choose those stories very intentionally. And it's not just like any and all stories of your, you know, you growing up. Is there a way that you hook people in, or like maybe a framework or a method that you do, like something that you do in the beginning to hook people in? Because, and I ask this because at least from what we teach, like, you know, it's always good to have something in the beginning that draws people, and then you can go into a story and then maybe go into your teaching content, the body, whatever it is, and then a call to action is sort of like the structure that we use. So I'm curious to hear how you would structure that.
This is your area of expertise for sure, Auret. I am the performance communications person, so I take advice from our Facebook ads team, and I take advice from an expert like you. What I can speak to is when I did videos that started with, "Hi, I'm Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy," nobody would watch them.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you know why. If I would start a conversation with, the reason most people fail when they begin speaking is because they don't trust themselves, then maybe somebody's going to keep tuning in. So you teach this beautifully. There needs to be a reason for us to continue watching because we are overwhelmed with content all the time. So what I would say is, even when I direct my speakers to create a video for video submissions, because all events want a 2-minute video submission, it never starts off with, "Hi, I'm Tricia Brouk. Thank you for watching my video submission." You're going to lose them right away. It's more about self-love is the ultimate connection for humanity. And I'm just making that up as I go, but some sort of hook that makes us go, "Ooh, tell me more."
Yeah, I was just curious to hear from like a story point of view if there's something that you do in the beginning to kind of reel people in, but that.
Well, I will expand. I will expand. And this is specifically to speaking, but I think it could be valuable for camera. And you'll tell me. I teach people a 5-part structure. It is introduce a problem, share a story, paint a picture, introduce your new idea, solve the problem with your idea, and then the call to action. So if I were speaking on a stage, I would say, we are at a precipice and the world can only survive with leadership consciousness.
That framework is very, very similar, if not the same, because like in terms of the problem point in the beginning, it is, you want to speak to why they're there. Like, why did they click on that video? And oftentimes, especially if you're optimizing that video for search, they're typing a question into the search. That is a question, a challenge, a problem, and that video is coming up as a solution. So acknowledge why they're there right from the beginning, right? So yeah, that totally makes sense. And then the story is what kind of draws them in, engagement wise, into your new idea or whatever. That's the teaching component, if you will. And yeah, ending with the call to action. That very much aligns with what we do. So
amazing.
Yeah. When it comes to the call to action piece, do you have a way of helping people feel more natural when it comes to making that call to, or the ask or the call to action, without feeling salesy or inauthentic?
I do. And I love this conversation because this also takes practice. When you feel salesy or when you feel inauthentic, it's your issue with asking people to invest in you. And so that's the first thing. Knowing that you are providing a service is a gift, and sales is service. So when you can wrap your head around saying, "Join my program, it's $7,000 and you will not be disappointed," however you're going to say it, energetically, you have to believe that first, or nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
So when you are selling something, if you're, I feel bad about doing this, nobody's going to purchase. So I would suggest rehearse saying it, get really comfortable with it, and use the editing as an option. Do several takes until you start relaxing. And the last one will probably be the most comfortable for you, and then edit that one in.
And then that's the same thing as what I do. Sometimes it takes time to get the wording figured out first in terms of how you want to make that ask. Because for me, I always wanted to just casually tie it into what I'm saying, and it's something like, if you found this video helpful, then we have XYZ resources. You could talk a little bit about it. It's linked in the description below, and just leaving it at that without the rambling part, without going on and on and on about it. So yeah, I think that feels good. There's always this interesting dance when speaking on camera about being professional and, coming across as the authority in your space, and yet still being relatable and conversational. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but for me, it comes with practice, over and over and over again.
It comes with the repetitions. When I first started doing video, I got so many comments that were negative about my head bobbing and being too close to the kid. And that's also something that I should speak to, is that don't listen to anybody's negative feedback. When you start putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there for everybody to criticize you. So just know that your heart is in the right place. You're working with Auret and the team because you want to create value and content and be of service. So you're working with the right company, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You've got the right mentor, and she's going to steer you in the right direction. So just trust that when you put yourself out there as an influential voice or somebody who's creating content on camera, that means you're putting yourself out there for unsolicited feedback. Just be aware of that.
Yep, it's part of the game. And can you speak to, because you mentioned like the head bobbing and stuff, can you speak to how body language and voice or timing, like these little things, how that affects your message coming across, how it lands with your audience?
The whole thing about communicating on camera and on stage, but really on camera, is the trust factor. And if you are hesitant or tentative in your body language, if you're hunching and not looking at the camera, there's a mistrust there, or you keep trying, but you're distracted. And so you're looking down and you're looking up. The whole conscious awareness and energy of being confident and positive is going to create the trust capital that you need. I talk all the time about being in a trust recession and in a relationship recession. People want to connect with you, and you know the stats on this far more than I do on YouTube and SEO and connecting, and this being the search engine and all of this. So you have this major, massive, incredible opportunity to reach millions of people. And that means understanding your body language, having your hands in the frame sometimes, understanding that there shouldn't be too much space between your head and the top of the frame, making sure that what you have in your background is trustworthy and professional. Even if you are in your bathroom, you want to make sure that there's not something strange in the corner that you didn't notice that's in the bottom of the frame. And then all of a sudden you post it on YouTube and everybody's like, what is that in the bottom of the frame? So I think understanding, like you said, the level of professionalism and personal ease and relatability, along with being able to know how to use your body, being conscious of when to bring your hands. When I saw you come towards the camera earlier, or when to come towards the camera for impact, like that was a very intentional decision that you made. And understanding when to look away and when to come back. So rehearse that. This is a whole choreographed dance.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best dancers need to rehearse over and over and over again, and they do, right? So don't be so hard on yourself that it's taking time, even if you are a great speaker on stage, because, as we've mentioned, this is a totally different skill. Speaking on, this has been so great. I'm curious to hear if there's any other thoughts that you want to mention, or if someone watching this only had time to implement like one little thing, one tweak, one tip, practice or exercise from today to feel more confident on camera, what would that be?
I think it's sort of a new concept that we haven't touched on, but it is a good tip that we can leave the audience with, and that is to conserve your energy. When you make the decision to record batch a bunch of videos, or let's say you're just doing one, when you, oh, darn it, start over. Oh, that was horrible. Start over. Oh my gosh, I can't believe trust me, that's going to be the norm because we all make mistakes. But when you conserve your energy, I'm starting over. Doop. take 2, boop, take 13. When you conserve your energy and you get into that mindset and that flow, you become a high performance content creator on camera. And that would be the tip I would leave you with is don't beat yourself up, conserve that energy and stay in it because you're going to capture that beautiful take.
100%. That happened to me over and over and over again in the beginning. So what Tricia's saying is so right. Don't get in your head about it. It's totally fine. And, be light with yourself and even laugh at yourself. Like that's what I do. If I fumble and say like a weird word that I made up that I didn't know existed, I'll laugh at myself and just keep going. And one of the things that I heard that has helped one of our clients is putting a photo of them I think he was like as a toddler or as a kid, like the 5-year-old self. And that way it reminds them, like when they're filming, and that way it reminds them to just like every time they mess up and they get in their head, like they look at that and it's like, oh, yeah, just be light, could like be kind to that younger you. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think that's a great little tip to end this conversation on. And Tricia, if someone wants to connect with you, please let them know where to do that or anything else that you have going on. I know that you have an upcoming book in October.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I would love to hear from you at triciabrouk.com. Also, I would love to offer your viewers a free on-demand masterclass on commanding any room. This will help you on camera and off. And if you go to triciabrouk.com/command, it is a free on-demand masterclass. Also, my new book is Being Smart is Stupid, Why Embracing the Wisdom of Your Buddha Nature is the Secret to Great Leadership. And I think these 9 pillars of leadership can also help your on-camera speaking. And you can just go to beingsmartisstupid.com.
That's incredible. Thank you. I will have the links down in the description below for you guys to check that out. And thank you for that masterclass. It's really generous of you. This was a juicy conversation, Tricia. So much value. And I'm so glad we had this conversation. I hope all of you watching this take some good notes, implement something that you heard right away, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Tricia.
Thank you so much, Auret. Appreciate all of you.
Bye.